Pain is just a low vibration messenger. It's necessary.
From childhood is when our wounds really start to take place and shape. And what would you say your childhood wound is?
We even begin attaching our worth or identity to our appearance. We seek those instead of the value of who we authentically are. You can learn to come back to your authenticity so that you can feel safe enough to exist how you were uniquely created. I just no longer am confusing survival with love, right? So
Yes,
biggest
yes.
part of my healing journey was realizing that this is just a part of me, it's not all of me. I began to assume that survival mechanism, that people pleaser, that codependent, all those things that just come naturally from those situations. And it became part of my identity until I could no longer carry it. But survival is not your identity, and healing is not becoming someone new, right? It's creating enough safety to return to who you were before survival taught you otherwise.
Welcome back to Seen Heard Love, a safe space to feel a little less alone and a whole lot more connected. I'm your host, Jackie Ohm, and I'm honored to sit with today's guest because this conversation feels not like so much like an interview, but more like witnessing someone speak truth from lived experience,
Mm.
something deeply human. We're talking about safety wounds, nervous system healing, human design, authenticity, and the very real human need to feel seen, heard, and loved. With us here today is Crisi Snow, a guide, speaker, creator devoted to helping people connect with their authentic selves. Crisi, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. Got chills from that introduction. Thank you so much. Yes,
Yes.
I feel your title. I feel seen, heard, and then ultimately thereby loved. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was so interesting because when I first invited Chrissy onto the show, she said we had the same through line. And so we share the same mission of helping our community feel seen, heard, and loved. Chrissy, I would love to begin by simply asking who you are and what brought you to the work that you do.
At my core, I'm a human. So therefore, I have had human experiences, and that ultimately
Mhm.
led me to this work, not by a direct path, but by, as life has it, a very
Yeah.
rerouted path, but everything with intention
Mhm.
and purpose. So, yeah, I mean, just about, to help your audience get to know a little bit about me, like I help people understand that many of their patterns, their human patterns that they struggle with, are not personal failures, but nervous system adaptations and survival responses that are created over time. And I really focus on helping those people reconnect to who they actually are. I have this tagline that it's called unique for a reason. And
Yeah.
so basically, underneath all this conditioning and trauma responses, self abandonment, all these like inherited survival patterns that all of us go through as a human
Mhm.
experience, because I know it just did not feel right in my body, and discovering what those reasons were. And after all the words of like nudges, pings, all the, whatever you want to insert
Mhm.
here, I was just really interested in the healing aspect of it, the self
Yes.
awareness of it, the spirituality, the emotional resilience, right? And so I don't know. I mean, this is going to sound funny, but I'll take this as an example. But I've always been tall all my life. So I know what it feels like to feel different, right? Even in something
Yeah.
as simple as my height, feeling that difference, right? So you see the world differently than other people around you do. And so then you begin asking bigger questions and craving deeper meanings, and just to kind of feel like that there's more than surviving. So I just spent years studying and practicing different modalities centered around nervous system regulation, meditation, journaling, somatic healing like breath work, tapping, mindfulness, all that stuff. And then inner child and shadow work was really my first self exploration and study. So from studying it and living it, it just kind of became a large part of my healing journey. And I no longer abandon myself in order to feel, say it with me, seen, heard, or loved.
Seen, heard, loved.
And
Yes. And
yeah, so
no longer abandoning ourselves. And this isn't something we learn growing up. And so the type of work you do is very much needed. You said you started off with inner child work and shadow work. Tell me about that.
kind of go back to your first point. It's a survival mechanism that we all have based off of hypervigilance or codependency, fear of
Mm,
rejection, all of those. So I
yeah.
really want to put the emphasis on like, I see all of you, I hear all of you, right? This is part of that human experience that we referenced
Uh-huh.
earlier. When I ever get a new client, a lot of the times I'll soft toe it into it, and I know we'll get there and I'm bouncing ahead, but I'll soft toe it in there with my two of my easiest introduction programs, which are either human design or the nervous system reset that I have. And once those are in practice, because they're necessary, right, for our body to
Mm-hmm.
feel safe enough to do it, then we go into the inner child. And then ultimately, the shadow work goes hand in hand with that, because your shadow is just those parts of you that you were taught are bad, but they're really not. So
Yeah.
we really begin unpacking and learning about these false narratives, these false beliefs, these survival skills and identities that you picked up, and then we heal them. And it's a beautiful thing because it's just based off of, I mean, we can repeat this common thread through line, whatever you want to say of, but
Yes.
the beautiful title of your network, when we feel seen and heard, that is when we feel loved. And there are ways to go back. I've developed them because I experienced them, these ways of going back and healing, even though like one of my parents isn't here, right? I can't have that difficult
Yeah.
conversation or whatever from those healing parts, but it's possible to do it. And so, but inner child, basically, we
Yeah.
go down and we look at the behavior that's coming up, and we discover through these methods that we do, and every day is different. But what is that behavior trying to protect from me?
Yeah.
What part of you learned this? What pain is underneath this pattern? What happens if you meet that part of yourself with compassion instead of shame? All of those are legitimate questions, and we've been conditioned to not look at them because we think that
Yeah.
healing is painful, and it is, and we're taught to run from pain. Pain is just a low vibration messenger. It's necessary.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the neighbor to, depression and anger. And everyone thinks, when you talk about nervous system, everyone thinks, oh, I want to be, zen or happy or joyful. And I'm like, yeah, those are high vibrations and those are necessary and they're beautiful rewards. But a well balanced nervous system has all of them. We have high vibrations, middle vibrations, low vibrations, and it's constantly going up and down, kind of like a ladder. And it's just not staying stuck in one of those for too long.
It sounds like you're a guide who takes our hand, walks us through the dark tunnel, saying, it's okay, you got this step by
Mhm.
step, understanding why those patterns or those cycles keep coming up and dictating or controlling our choices and repeating patterns that keep us small.
So true. Yep. Just feeling safe to
Yeah.
fully be yourself. 100%.
From childhood is when our wounds really start to take place and shape. And what would you say your childhood wound is?
I've lived in this human experience. So I had a tumultuous childhood. So I had a lot of hypervigilance
Yeah.
rooted. I had a lot of survival skills that came to me. I am a
Mm,
product of divorce household, two alcoholic parents,
mm,
and everything that comes along with that, right? So I
mhm.
became a huge codependent, the people pleaser, all of these taglines, and in my opinion, oversaturated words that have lost their meaning, that
Yeah.
we use in this society, but keep it familiar and relevant. I'll say them here. But because of all of that, like I learned to abandon parts of myself to maintain connection and to survive. And
Yeah.
so through that, and again, I really believe everything has a purpose and a reason, and I'm grateful for it. So, I understand that, those are all my protector parts and that they're
Yeah.
not bad, that my nervous system learned how, my attachment style equals safety.
Yeah.
And so I adapted, and I now am highly aware of others emotionally. I can monitor
Mhm.
energy and moods and reactions. I mean, we can use the powers for good if you want to say it that way.
Yeah,
So,
for
yeah,
sure.
like I'm just no longer am confusing survival with love, right? So the
Yes, yes.
biggest part of my healing journey was realizing that this is just a part of me. It's not all of me, that I don't need to shame those patterns, right? I just needed to understand them. I needed to let them be seen and heard, and that awareness creates a choice. So once we see the
Yes,
pattern
yeah.
clearly, we can stop unconsciously becoming that pattern, and slowly we begin separating our authentic self from our survival self. and we get a choice which one we want to live in.
And so many of us, we are living in survival mode and we don't know what it feels like to not be in survival mode. I know I identify with worthiness and safety wounds. And when we met in pre interview, you mentioned something really, really beautiful, but uncomfortable, of course. But to me, when I heard it, it was just so like a beautiful sentiment or memory, even. You mentioned feeling in utero,
Mm.
not feeling safe, and those vibrations somehow affecting through your childhood. Can we step into that and tell us more about feeling unsafe in utero?
So that's part, yes, you can. So that's part of the inner child work that I
Yeah.
do. And as divinely as it was, it was necessary for me to go through all the experiences that I went through, and I'm grateful for them. So as I developed my inner child healing project, right? And I learned all of the things about how our body works, how our subconscious stores absolutely everything in it. The important years of 0 to 7 and all these things that we've learned about how our brain works and all of that. I learned that it's important to go back to that. And, I pre recorded my meditation and, guided myself through it. That's where I learned about the tumultuousness of my parents because, it was floating in the embryonic fluid and it was just red. Like, just, it
Mm.
was scary. It was just red. And I know from what I've been told about the arguments and the things between my mom and my dad. But I began to take that on even then because we don't like to feel that discomfort. So even in this
Mm.
developing state that I was in, I began to assume that survival mechanism, that people pleaser, that codependent, all those things that just come naturally from those situations. And it became part of my identity until I could no longer carry it. And so I
Yeah.
really wove into the surrender piece of that and the seeking piece of it. The first person that can really see and hear you in this human form is yourself, right? I do believe
Yes.
in a vertical, I do believe in something greater than yourself, whatever you commune with, great, again, vertical conversing. But when we're here in the
Hmm.
horizontal realm, I mean, the first person that you need to see, hear, and love is you because you are the only person that you're guaranteed to be with 100% of the time. That's just a fact, right?
Exactly.
Everything else is a variable. So it starts with you, it ends with you, again, horizontally. So I basically had been fed up with it and I started unpacking it. And I just discovered this authenticity. I learned like what my personal authentic code is. And there's certain words. And I know you and I talked about it early on, but like lack and playing small and not being seen, like they're those low vibrations for me, but they're my false narrative, inauthentic self, right? They're what I was taught to believe. And then words like abundance and freedom and things like that, that's my expansive, that's my magnetic self, that's my true essence of who I really am. And as I discovered like who I really am, and so I know that when I'm feeling unseen, unheard, not feeling loved, whatever, I now know how to pull her up, listen to what she's saying, let her know she's seen, talk to her, and really meeting her with my highest version of myself and healing her and saying what she needs and things of that nature. And it's all within, right? Because
Yes.
I can't be here without her. So there's that seeing part, right? And the strength that she needed to have, and just loving her purely as she is and telling her about her bravery and everything. So, yeah.
That was eloquently worded, Chrissy.
Mm.
So many of us are go, and I have those same words too, like lack, not good enough, stuckness. And right now, it's such a big focus of mine to expand and receive the abundant life that we're all meant to live. What does it feel like for someone who's been hyper vigilant and studying this self even before you were literally born? What does it feel like? Because so many of us can also identify with this. What does it feel like when the body says, I cannot abandon myself anymore?
Like, or it sounds like the giving up, it's actually the starting. That is the cue, that is the fire alarm, whatever you want to call it, so that you can learn to come back to your authenticity so that you can feel safe enough to exist how you were uniquely created, right? So you don't have to live in the performing or the shape sifting. But for me, I was, that people pleaser. I was thinking I had to earn love through overgiving or,
Yeah.
you know, emotional labor or whatever. And I just think that like the deepest human need is not perfection or success, but it's like an accurate reflection. So when we have that, again, fire alarm that's going off, right? That just says, I can't do
Mm.
this anymore. Returning to yourself, really, I think that's the time that your body is basically telling you, I'm ready. So
Yes.
it's this juxtaposition where you think, I'm done, but it's like, no, you're just starting. Like, this is not the,
You're just starting.
yeah, it's just your body saying, like, you are ready and it's okay. And we can get
Mhm.
rid of those, begin to unpack those protector parts, right? So, again, like just I was saying, I can nerd out with the brain, but that is the primal instinct of the brain is just to keep us alive. So we keep repeating patterns because we're
Mhm.
alive to prove that they work, but they're not necessarily the best methods for us. And so that's kind of why I use those, what I said earlier, like the softer approaches of the human design or
Mhm.
the nervous system reset, because it can begin to have you prove to yourself that you can begin anew, right? We can begin to create those new neural pathways. You can begin to let go of that hypervigilance. You can begin to know that you are safe, that you are enough, that you are seen, heard, and loved.
Seen, heard, and loved.
And that, again, just begin building your identity.
So, human design is relatively new in my consciousness and for many of us too. But I've been really into astrology and other modalities of self discovery and self awareness. What is human design exactly, and how does it help us understand nervous system?
Oh, okay. So, well, human design, it's complex in execution. Basically, it takes astrology and astronomy and the I Ching and a bunch of different components, and it brings them all together and it provides you a snapshot of the exact time, again, like adjacent to astrology, which is more common. Human design
Hmm.
is kind of like the breath work, right? People are just starting to catch on to
Mm,
it now,
yeah, yeah,
where those of us who've been practicing it for years are like, welcome, we're so glad you're here.
yeah.
And
Finally.
and yeah, but I think as a collective, and that is a big word in the human design thing, like as a collective, and much like my experience, your experience, everything that we've been through, like all of it was necessary, right? So like the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, like we
Hmm.
needed every bit of that to bring us to this point, which is now this technological revolution that we're all living in. So again, it's all necessary to have things in place, but what we're noticing is that anything that isn't in true authentic nature is crumbling. And you can take any example of the world around you and say, oh, aha, you're not making this up. And one of the biggest things is that we have given over. So sovereignty is a big word this year, right? And so we've given over our sovereignty, ourselves, essentially. Sovereign means one, right? Us. And
Hmm.
so we've given over our sovereignty for so many years and decades. And now people are starting to finally have this rumbling, this awakening, to come to that brink that you had said, what happens when people get there, to that point about their nervous system and they just
Hmm.
think they've had enough. And it's like, no, it's a beginning. Like that's your divine, whatever you believe in, your source greater than you saying it's time, right? You're ready. You are able. So human design, that's a little bit of a tangent, but human design takes the snapshots of you and where the planets are. It calculates it all in this body graph. So it takes two different, it has a conscious side and an unconscious side. So the conscious side is the exact time, date, and place of birth, as is in astrology, where the planets are. And then it does a snapshot 88 days prior to the exact time you were
Oh.
born. And that's your unconscious side. And so what it does is it breaks it down. And within us as human beings that are walking amongst here, flawed as every one of us, because of human design talks a lot about the conditioning. It brings that awareness about like you were just taught this. You were never this. You were
Mhm.
conditioned to believe this. Let us remind you who
Yeah.
you are on those conscious and unconscious sides. And some people are like, oh yeah, that really is me. Thanks for the reminder. And some are like, no way. And you're like, stick with me here, right? And then they realize, oh, that does make sense. Within us as these humans, though, we have 64 codons that our DNA and our RNA make up. So it's within us. This is what makes every single one of us unique. This is the snowflake theory. So even if you're an identical twin, you still are different. So you have the same DNA, but things are different about you. And it compiles all of that and it takes it into account and it reminds you This is why it's kind of that soft little entrance, because I've created books for people where I'm like, hey, you read this on your own. You know, it's a 100-page book. It's extremely overwhelming. Titrate it, take it, read it page by page, right? It's laid out for you in order, however you want to do it. Or let's do it one on one. I'll explain it to you. You know, some people have done both where they're like, you explain it, I want the book, and then we come back. I mean, there's lots of ways to do it, but it's just this gorgeous reminder of this is who you are. And it's, you know, it's called a roadmap or a blueprint or whatever you want to say it. But I'm like, this is you. And it's exciting. And
Yeah,
it's,
it is exciting.
and it helps people feel seen
Be-
because they're like, that is me. And then when you are very permissive and you're like, well, you were meant to, and they're like, whoa, I've always wanted to do that. Right. So, for example, right. So, based on my like energy type, you know, if it's not a hell yes for me, it's a no. And so, not
yeah.
showing up to things, right? The shooting on ourselves, the inauthentic parts that we do. And it's like, well, that's why that doesn't land. Right. And so, giving yourself permission to say no, to not should on yourself, to do all those things. Even that smallest part has a huge reaction that settles your nervous system right then and there. And
Absolutely.
so it's
Yeah.
something easy like that, but not everybody knows that they're allowed or, you know, whatever to do it because they're afraid to decondition. And that's just their protector parts, right? I'm not shaming anything of it. I'm not shaming a person, whether they raised you in any capacity, you know, from parents to teachers to law enforcement to whatever. It's not that. It's just what you learned in that moment that you survived. And therefore you are like, well, that works. So I'm going to keep it. It's really right? The body just learned what was safe and what wasn't, right? And so,
Absolutely.
yeah. And so that's what human design
So,
does. And it's when you practice it, it almost dares you to practice it. It's pretty fast.
yes,
Hmm.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So, human design as a permission slip to be your authentic self, and
Yeah.
which is unique because you're saying we're all conditioned, of course, and we're conditioned because the generation before conditioned, and it's just being passed on. But when we understand our human design and we get those hell yeses to be our authentic self, it's like a permission slip. I
Yeah.
was curious. You said the unconscious and conscious side of human design, which lit my heart up. I'm excited to
Oh,
hear
great.
more. So, the conscious side, where the planets are and all that, but you mentioned 88 days prior to your birthday
Hmm.
being your unconscious self. Can you expand on that?
So yeah, it's a snapshot of where the planets are at that moment in time. And then again, they're taken. You can look up. I should have had a human design thing. So it takes your body graph, and you can see kind of like the chakras because that's part of it. Even though there's 9 in human design, and so within that, within you know your crown, your ajna, your throat, all of those, there are gates. And those gates, some of them are defined, some of them are undefined, right? So we have things we're aware of, things we're not aware of, our conscious, our unconscious side. And with each one of those, there's a decimal point, and that talks about the personality profile. And as you know, like every planet has a representation. So, for example, where you are in your conscious sun and your unconscious sun, like those go together to build your profile in human design. And so if you say in your profile, like your conscious side would be, oh, yeah, I recognize that within myself. I see that as myself. But what I struggle with is not being seen as it by
Hmm.
others. And my other struggle can be in my unconscious side. That's how others view me. And I may not see myself as that unless I've done a lot of work on myself, right? And we can see all aspects of ourselves, but I may not recognize that in myself. And so for people to keep seeing me as something I don't believe myself to be, I begin to
Hmm.
feel inauthentic, frustrated, unseen, unheard, unloved, too emotional, too sensitive, too much, too different, whatever it may be. When really it's just an expansive part of like, hey, keep doing the work because you're not just limited to one part of you. You have a lot of these gifts given to you and not all of them. So that unconscious part of it is also another exploration of possibility. right? Where you're like, wow, I never saw myself as this. And
Yes.
maybe I like this about me, maybe I don't like this about me, whatever that is. But then we can have a little bit of a conversation, a growth, or whatever it may be, where we're like, okay, what is it that you like about it? What is it that you don't like about it? What are the reasons behind you, blocking this, or, getting frustrated when people only see this, or whatever it may be in that example. And so it's just that reminder that, like, you're not broken. There has nothing to do with like not being broken, not being seen, or something like that. It's just a matter of you're just not aware of it yet. And we have so much of that lying within us that when we're reminded of it, we begin to get more curious about it. And we're like, well, what else don't I know about myself? What else have I been conditioned to believe that really isn't true? Right. And then that's where the
Yes.
healing can kind of come in, and then you can weave it into your human design, right? Wow, I'm really good at this. This is something I'm really good at. With the full recognition, I can't be good at all things, right? There's healing right there, right? As women, and especially if, like,
Mhm.
I've been a former single parent, right? So we get very controlling, right? Like, if I don't do it, no, it's going to fall and crumble. And we begin to believe that. And you're like, no, we have to have, I mean, you can talk about conscious and unconscious, but we have a feminine and a masculine side too, right? So just leaning into the femininity of receiving, right?
Yes.
Receiving a full compliment without giving one back. Or, like if I say, I'm like, Jackie, I really love that color on you. And you saying, thank you, versus, oh, I just picked it up. It was on sale and I wasn't sure about it. Right. So now we've negated that compliment, but even in that, and so that is an example, right? Masculine, feminine, conscious, unconscious, like we do that. Or, like, hey, yeah, I really like Chrissy. Yeah, you too. And it's like, no, this is just for you, Jackie. Like even simple practices of that, right? So things that we're unaware of, that we bring it back where we now can expand and we can add something else to who we are authentically. And does it resonate or does it not? Because the more familiar we become with ourselves, the more, like you had said, like you and I share common language, expansive, right? Like
Yeah.
learning what your authentic code is, right? I was with someone the other day and I said the word masterpiece, and they're like, oh, I really like that word. And I'm like, fantastic. It means nothing to me, right? I love that it means everything to you. But we all have our own like words that just land and feel really good, like viscerally inside our bodies. And so we're aware of that. And then there's others that we're not, but we can bring them up and we can heal them, incorporate them, let
Mhm.
them go, so on and so forth. Because the unconscious sides are often the sides that, if they're not protector parts, we don't feel seen.
I like how you said visceral experience, and just going taking your example of receiving a compliment instead of blocking it and pushing it away. We can almost expand that as an archetype. And this is how I've been doing my inner work with this is like those things that happen that make us feel uncomfortable. It's a vibration and I just let it
Mm.
flow through me and past me without holding on to it. And that's how I know, and then while being grounded and unmoved. So just take the mundane example of receiving a compliment. And as much as the vibrations within say, I don't want to receive it, you just exhale and let it flow through you. That conditioning, the discomfort. I am curious, why do you feel like it's such a need for humans to feel seen, heard, and loved?
Ooh, girl. Well, first of all, I want like one word that came to me when you were talking about it moving through you, right? Like the word that came to me was just allowing, right? So you can allow it to stay or to go, but we just allow this, whatever it may be, because it too may be here to reflect a lesson to you, to teach you, right? And maybe we're ready for it, maybe we won't. So will I allow the lesson to happen now? Because we know it's going to come later. Like they'll always be
Yeah.
repeating us if we don't. So I don't know. That word just came through really strong for me. And so I just wanted to say it. So why is it so important? Well, I feel like so many people feel disconnected from their authentic selves, right? And I feel this way and I'm just huge on authenticity because everything within like my work is coming back to you, right? So the authentic self. So why did that happen? Why did we disconnect? Well, because we talked about earlier, right? So your survival becomes your identity, that we had to like do things to receive love, right? Like as in my case, to avoid rejection, staying emotionally safe, all those sorts of things. And then just over time, those just became part of us, right? They're so automatic, so that, and we forget like where our conditioning ends and our authenticity begins. Like, again, I'll go back to us as women, right? So we even begin attaching our worth or identity to our appearance, right? It's a huge thing for women nowadays, right? For men, productivity, success, money, both sides of, and well, these are not gender specific, right? I mean, we all have our different ways, but just any kind of validation, right? Or achievements. And so we seek those instead of the value of who we authentically are.
This work is invaluable. As you said it, the line blurs between our disconnection and our authentic selves.
Mm.
And I am so looking forward to experiencing human design in just this readiness state that I'm in to
Mhm.
learn more about my unconscious and where I am now. I'm definitely in an expansive phase of my life, and I feel like human design is going to be really supportive to me. And I'm sure it can help so many people too. Well, I know it can if they're open to it. But where can people connect with you and explore your work, or
Yeah.
get those one-on-ones or the 100 pager?
Yeah. And again,
Yeah.
like for you, I just want to thank you. I receive your compliment and I'm reflecting back to you. I hear you using that word expand, and I'm like fanning the flames of that. It is so good. It is so critical. You are ready. And I love that you're jumping in with that, right? As your nervous system says, yeah, we're ready. We feel safe enough to do it. And you're allowing. I don't know why allow comes through for me for you, but I just wanted to say that because it just is, I see you,
I appreciate
I
it.
see you, I hear
Thank
you, and I do love and care about you. Where can they find me? So I have some of these things already up on my website. I have sold out. I got to get them back up and on for my self-guided inner child. So I develop all my work by myself. And so things like the website design and the creating, like they're all unique, they're all mine. And so as I'm doing them, I'm like, be patient because they've sold out.
Good for you.
Yeah, they've sold out, but that's part of me. That's the creative, that's the freedom part. They're coming again, but what is always available, I did put up on my website. So yourcrisisnow.com is my website, and it's spelled Your Crisis Now, which is my name and how it's spelled. So again, everything used for a purpose and designed for good. So on there, you can see some of the work. I have some sample sessions, some total freebies. I have some underneath there. You can order the book specifically for you, and that's unique to you. So that's not sold out. It's under the Human Design Book of You. I have the Nervous System Reset that's up there, where that is the soft portal into yourself. I have a couple breathwork sessions that are up there, and then my inner child codependency is coming back. And then I'm actually, as a nod to you, and because you are an inspiration to me, is I was writing a meditation that I'm going to put up there for your audience. So I will do that as well. It's all about working on being seen and heard. And I took it not from the inner child, but from your inner teen, which is often overlooked, but vitally important perspective. And I think I might like develop a program about like being seen and expanding your life, fanning the flames. And it'll take a little bit of work, but I'd say keep coming back to the website for it. And then also on the website, we can book one-on-ones. And again, people are unique. We show up differently every time. We can do breathwork sessions, we can do meditations, we can have conversations, we can do none of it, we can do all of it. It's just a matter of what's happening when you show up authentically as yourself in the moment. They can be for, 20-minute snippets, or they can be for an hour. Also on Instagram, same thing. Your Crisi Snow is Your Crisis Now. If they need to private message me, you can do it through either of those, website or Instagram.
Thank you, Chrissy, for being your authentic self. And we haven't even met in person yet, and I feel like I've known you since before birth.
Well, I thank you for
So,
seeing me,
yeah,
hearing me, and loving me as I am
absolutely.
authentically. And yeah, it's fantastic.
And to everyone listening, if this episode resonated with you, I hope you remember that you're not broken. There's nothing to fix, but everything to feel welcome. Your emotions are not failures, and your authenticity is not too much. Don't be afraid to be yourself, and we got your back. Don't forget to reach out to Chrissy if you really need that kind of work to explore your unconscious and your authentic self. Her links will be in the show notes. Thank you once again,
Can I
Chrissy.
just
You
say,
are a treasure.
I know we're
Yes,
running
go
low
ahead.
toe, but I just want to bandwagon onto like your listeners. If anyone out there is feeling like unseen, unheard, or unloved, I just want you to know, and I'll attach Jackie to this because we kind of share the same fabric, that your sensitivity is not the problem, your emotions are not the problem, your body is not failing you. Like, Many people learn to disconnect from themselves in order to survive the environments that they could not fully hold who they were. But survival is not your identity, and healing is not becoming someone new, right? It's creating enough safety to return to who you were before survival taught you otherwise. So, your authenticity,
This
uniqueness,
is
and
music to my
yes,
ears. Ah,
yes. And
thank
I just,
you.
yes,
Thank
they're
you.
never broken. I just want people to know like it's just your authentic self worth developed like through your reflection and self regulation. So, yep, I just had to say that.
Yeah.
Just like allowing. Thank you
Yes.
for allowing me to do that.
Allowing. Yes.
Yeah.
And thank you, everyone. May this week fully support you in every step and every breath, being seen, heard, and loved.
If you have a team around you, trust your team and they're there for a reason. You saw something in them and you welcome them into your circle. Trust them and feel okay handing off responsibilities that you would normally do to others. Now, I did that at the end, and that's when I started feeling more disconnected